What's going on, operators, and welcome back to another video. This one's been a long time coming, and you've got my apologies for that. Between IRL stuff and projects and computer failures, there's been a number of things holding this video back, but finally we are on it, and I appreciate your patience while I've taken the time to get through all of those things and finally produce this video for you. That being said, while we're thanking people, I want to thank Cyelee Optics for providing the product for today's review. That's the Cobra X Pro. It is a nice pistol optic that also happens to work on your shotguns and rifles, and that's what we're going to be reviewing today, including a little shooting test later on, so make sure to stay tuned for that. That being said, of course, as per my usual review policy, I am a reviewer first and not an influencer. So I really have no vested interest here other than just to provide you with correct, factual, and non-biased information about various different products. If you like that, definitely make sure to subscribe and of course become a VIP access member if you'd like to in our Discord, which is linked below. But huge thanks to Cyelee for helping us out with this video, and of course they will not be getting any access to the video ahead of time, unlike our VIPs, and they won't have any editorial access as well. So there's no money changing hands and no influence here by the manufacturer. These are going to be pros, cons, and my genuine thoughts on whether you should pick one up yourself. That being said, let's go ahead and quit the chatter and get to reviewing, and we'll go ahead and get started with just going over what's in the box. All right, so first and foremost, let's go ahead and see what's in the box. We get a card here showing some information about sighting the optic in. We have another card here basically showing the different features of the optic. We also do have a nice little pamphlet here that gives you some idea as to how to operate the optic and its various features. Of course, you do also get the optic, which at the moment is going to be attached to the shadow system that I'm borrowing from a close friend of mine. Believe it or not, it does also come with a really nice little metal plate. This is really cool. It allows you to attach the optic to a variety of different pick rail systems, including on shotguns, rifles, and so on. Notable is the point that unfortunately the screws, the 640 screws in various lengths for the shadow system that I had and I was using to review the product for, those screws were not included in the box, but Cyelee was really nice to send me several pairs and extras of the screws that I required after contacting them, so I don't imagine that that would be any different for you. There is a compatibility checker on their website that you can check out, so if you want to know whether your pistol or other firearm is compatible with their optics, there is a way to do that. Of course, you can also contact their customer service, which is really quite nice, honestly, to deal with, and pretty prompt responses. Do note that they are on the other side of the world, and so as a result of that, they might be responding around the same time that we go to bed and vice versa. So, you know, there's a little bit of a delay there in that regard, but they're very nice with getting back to you with information that you need. So that's quite nice as well. We are going to get some tools as well. So we are going to get this. That is going to be your tool for adjusting your elevation and your windage. And then of course you are also going to get a tool for basically installing the screws through the optic and into your firearm. Other than that, there is a nice little cleaning cloth right there, and we do also have a bunch of extra screws right here. So these are just typical kind of screws that you might see on various different types of firearms. Those are included as well in quite a nice little padded box. Matter of fact, let's see if I can maybe just hold that up so you guys can see what that looks like. So yeah, nice little foam inside, and everything is kept quite safe on its way over to you. So first impressions are generally pretty good. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the features and what you can expect for the price. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, it is a wife-friendly channel here, so we don't discuss prices, but this will run you about, I don't know, about 2/3 of a Ruger 1022 carbine, so you can kind of figure that out. Maybe not quite 2/3, but maybe a little bit more than half, I guess you could say. So in terms of price point, fairly well priced, and yeah, hopefully the features reflect that. So let's go ahead and have a look at that next. All right, fellas, so to demonstrate some of the features here on the Cyelee Optics Cobra X Pro, we've got a beautiful little 9mm shadow system here. This was generously provided by a good friend of mine for review, and if you want to see this review, the shadow system itself, do make sure to become a subscriber. In terms of the mounting system, we'll talk about that first since it's pretty simple. We'll get a little focus there. And as you can see, we've got 2 screws there, so you'll have to take whatever plate is on top of your handgun off of that, and then you can mount this directly to it. Now you do get a bunch of mounting screws from Cyelee directly, but you have to keep in mind that of course your firearm is compatible. You can check that on their website, and even if it's not, like in my case, this shadow system wasn't, and they were nice enough to send over the right 640 screws in various lengths for me to try, and that is why I'm going to be talking to you about that wobble, which is, by the way, not the slide, but we'll get to that. But overall, very, very easy to mount. Just a couple of screws, like I said, on the top there, and you are good to go. As far as the window goes, we'll kind of point it out this way. As you can see a little bit through that window. I'll see if I can get you a little bit of B-roll as well for some clearer views. But we have a nice coated 24x17 mil window there, so definitely great for acquiring targets quickly and easily. And we do have a red dot on the inside. Now that red dot is going to give you a choice of a 2 MOA dot, a 26 MOA circle, or a combination of the two, which is quite nice. So you do have some choice in that, which is also really great. Now the general construction of the entire optic is made of very sturdy aluminum, and on the very top we have some very interesting design cues. If we could only get a little bit of focus, there we go. So very interesting, very aggressive looking optic, but also quite light. It is, like I said, made of aluminum, so it is definitely going to add a little bit of weight, but that's usually not a big deal for something as robust as a shadow system, or potentially even a Glock or something like that. So that being said, it's fairly easy to use. We've got a side-loading battery, which is going to be actually right here from this side, if I can show you a little bit. Of course, got your windage adjustment right there, and you can use the included tool that's in the box to do that. And then on the very top, yes, there you can see that we also do have an adjustment for your elevation, which is going to be right there, that little thing right there. Right, so that's going to be your windage and your elevation adjustment. And what's interesting is, according to Cyelee, this thing is also drop tested to 6 feet on a 35-ounce handgun with the optic down. So very interesting to see. I haven't tested that, and if you do want to see that maybe in the future, maybe we can do some tests and see how well that holds up from the Cyelee Optics website. But yeah, those are the main features there. You do, of course, also get a number of different brightnesses on here, which you can control on the other side. So let me just flip that over so I can kind of show you what that looks like. So you've got a couple of buttons right there, so you can get a little closer here for you. It might be a little hard to see. They are rubberized, so they have a really nice feel. You've got an up and a down there. The up is essentially going to make things brighter. The down going to make things less bright. You have 2 night vision compatible brightnesses on the low end and 8 on the high end for a total of 10. So that is quite nice as well. And then of course you do have a number of multifunction features in here. So if you're going to hold the up, that is eventually after a few seconds going to switch your reticle from the dot to the circle to the dot and the circle. And if you're going to be holding the down, then that is eventually going to turn your optic off. And what's important to note here is that you do also have shake away compatibility here. So they are kind of pushing the whole duty thing. You know, if you're in the police, in the military, or anywhere else, maybe a security guard, especially in the States where you guys are able to carry, then you will have the option to have this as a shake awake system. And they do claim up to 50,000 hours of battery life there. So again, I can't really confirm or deny that. And maybe we will at some point in the future if I get to use this enough. And hopefully with the laws changing where I can actually buy my own pistol, which would be also really nice. But yeah, that is what's being claimed on the website. And overall, my experience with using the optic, again, with the exception of the shake, which we'll talk about in a little bit, as well as, of course, just dealing with their customer service. You know, I was very adamant about making sure that I get the same service as any client would get, any person who would just buy this, which, by the way, if you want to pick one up for yourself, there is going to be a discount code towards the end of the video, so you can go ahead and use that. I believe it's about 15% off, if I'm not mistaken, something along those lines. So thank you again to Cyelee for providing that for you guys, so you guys can save a few bucks on the optic if you choose to pick it up. All right, so before we wrap things up, let me go ahead and put this away real quick. We'll just cut to a shooting test real quick and see how things go. Now, I actually filmed it with my drone, which is very interesting how it reacted to the shock waves produced by this thing. So I hope you enjoy that. And then when we come back, we'll just discuss my final thoughts, the pros, the cons, and whether I think you should pick up your own Cobra X Pro. All right, everybody, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the pros, the cons, and finally whether I think you should pick one of these up. Before I start talking about the actual product, though, I want to take a couple of minutes just to talk about the company. And that's because this is what I do in my day-to-day life. If I'm about to buy a product from a company, I do a ton of research into the company, I send a couple of emails, I make a couple of calls, and just see how they respond. This is increasingly more important in today's day and age where there's a lot of companies that just push out a lot of products but don't particularly support their customer base. And I really don't care how good your product is. If you're not going to support your customers, that is a huge piss off and turn off for me, and I want nothing to do with that company at that point, no matter how good their product is. So I'm very happy to report that my experience with Cyelee has been nothing but positive. They've been very kind and pleasant, and they've been sending me out things that I needed but didn't ask for, but was necessary for me to be able to mount the optic, like extra screws in various lengths, and they really didn't need to do that, especially since the logistics involved in that cost them money, right? But they did that, and then of course I got a little paranoid and I was like, so you guys do this for everybody, right? And they're like, yeah, we treat everybody the same. We're not going to treat you any different, and that was great. That was great to hear. So from the prospect of the company treating its customers right, they were friendly, they were polite, they were courteous, they were helpful, which was the most important thing, and I felt like I was supported despite the fact that I was going into something kind of new. Now, as for the actual optic itself, I found it to be quite nice. Honestly, the price point is still a little high, especially if you're breaking into a market. I feel like there are definitely features in this optic that put it a little bit in a more competitive sort of area versus some of the other optics and manufacturers that we know here in North America. But if the price was just a little bit better, then I think that they would actually do a lot better in breaking into the North American market. That being said, I can't really say anything about the quality of the product in a negative light. The product itself just felt really nice. It's built of aluminum, the glass is nice, the coatings, although I don't know what they are, seem to really make the viewing experience very pleasant. Now, if you've been with the channel for a little bit, you probably know that I have some issues with my eyes, and it's very difficult for me to see really tiny things, like, for example, the iron sights on a pistol, which is why I've shied away from using a pistol for a very long time. And I actually had a really pleasant experience, with the exception of the optic almost coming off, but we'll talk about that. I can't squarely put that on Cyelee, but it's just been really nice. Being able to choose between the different reticles, if I can follow the little tiny dot there, the 2 MOA dot, that made me a lot more precise. It actually made me way more accurate with my pistol, and it made me a lot more comfortable and competent with it. Of course, you have your circle, and then you have the combination of the two. So that's really nice that you can choose those two. Any optic worth its weight in gold is, of course, going to have some customizability options in terms of changing either the type of reticle or, more importantly, the brightness, and that definitely was available there as well with 8 daytime settings. And I wasn't able to test it. I may have to borrow Max's night vision goggles. So Max, if you're watching, better get it ready, buddy, because I'm going to be at your door next week. But I want to go ahead and check out the 2 bottom least bright settings, because according to Cyelee, those are for night vision, or they are night vision capable, at least according to their website. So very curious to test that out. If you want to see a video on it, make sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and of course, become a subscriber so you don't miss things in the future. Now, there are some other things. I really like the rubberized finish. Now, on the outside of the packaging, there was something that was put on that packaging that I didn't see on the website, and that is that it's fully submergible. Now, obviously, you're not going to be diving into the ocean and using your pistol there. Unless maybe you're James Bond. But that being said, I haven't put that to the test as well. So again, if you want to see a submerged test, do let me know. I did do a bit of a drop test. Now, again, according to Cyelee, 6 foot on a 35 pistol optic down, and it was perfectly fine, according to them. Well, my optic came right off my gun, and unfortunately, that was user error on my part. That had nothing to do with Cyelee, but it landed on a bunch of rocks, like jagged small rocks, and I picked it up and there was no scratches, the glass was fine, and I was able to kind of screw it back on with longer screws and just keep going, so that was nice. Other than that, yeah, it's just very easy to use. It comes in a nice box, it's shipped very well, lots of good documentation as well, so there's a ton of pros there. I really do like using it. And I was going to give it away, but actually I like it so much, I might actually just keep it. So we'll see what happens there. All right, so last but not least, the only con out of this entire experience, and that was that the optic first came off and then stayed on, but was very loose after going through about 3 or 4 magazines of shooting. Now, the first scenario, I can't squarely pin that on Cyelee optics because that was completely my fault. I was using the right thread screw, but the wrong length. The result of that was that the bottom of the screw wasn't enough to engage with the threads inside the slide, and it was just not a good connection. After enough moving around with the slide going back and forward, after about 4 or 5 magazines, so about 50 rounds of shooting, the optic just completely flung off, hit me in the noggin, fell into the rocks. Mind you, that it was okay. There was no damage to the optic, but it was just kind of caught me off by surprise, though I had a feeling that something may happen just because of how loose it was already at that point, and I just wanted to see at which point it would fail. Trying to remedy that, I decided to use the other screws that I had. So I only had 2 pairs of screws, but the others were a little bit longer, and they seemed to engage quite a lot better. Now, a lot of you are probably screaming to yourself, why the hell didn't you use Loctite? Well, there was Loctite. Now, mind you, the Loctite was a little dry, but it was applied to both the short and the long screws, and I just didn't want to mess with it just to see how it would work on its own accord. I still do want to do a Loctite test on the longer screws in a future video. If you want to see that, drop me a like and let me know. But that being said, I didn't want to contaminate the results. I just wanted to see what the stock screws from the factory were going to do. Now, of course, the longer screws were much better. The optic just stayed on. It didn't come off like before, but it did get quite loose, and as a result of being loose, it lost its accuracy. Now, the actual reticle was still very accurate when it was tightened back down again, but because it was loose on the slide, you couldn't possibly expect that to be accurate. And again, I can't solely completely put that on Cyelee optics, although it is something that they admit has happened with a lot of their customers, and that leads me to believe that a lot of it might be user error. All right, operators, that is going to do it for me. Thank you so much, and again, my apologies for taking so long to put this video together for you. A huge thanks to Cyelee Optics for providing the Cobra X Pro for review and being so friendly and helpful throughout this whole experience. And a very special warm thanks to all of my VIP Access members for helping to support the channel directly. If you'd like to do that, you can head over to our Discord channel, which is linked down below, and become a VIP member through the VIP info channel there. Alternatively, you can, of course, use the Super Thanks button either below or I think it's that way, to buy me a beverage of your choice. And of course, we do also have our merch store, which will be finding a new home very, very soon with some very exciting new products, including the original COAR grip, as well as the foregrip. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Thanks again so much for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. And until then, happy shooting.